In 480 BC, the earth trembled beneath the footsteps of the largest army the world had ever seen. At its head rode a king who believed he was the living will of the gods. Xerxes the First of Persia, unstoppable, divine, and absolutely furious. His target was Greece. His mission was to crush the world's first democracy into dust. Standing in his way was a strip of land barely wider than a city street, squeezed between jagged cliffs and a cold, indifferent sea. The Greeks called it Thermopylae, the Hot Gates. And at the Hot Gates stood 300 men who had already decided they were going to die there. 10 years earlier, Xerxes' father, Darius the Great, had sent his army to punish Athens for supporting a Greek rebellion. It should have been over in days. Instead, a smaller Athenian-led force routed the Persians at Marathon and sent them scrambling home in humiliation. Darius vowed revenge, but died before collecting it. That burning obsession passed to Xerxes, and in his hands it became something far more dangerous than revenge, a holy mission. For 4 years, Xerxes assembled his force. From Egypt to India, from Mesopotamia to Bactria, he drafted soldiers until his army numbered somewhere between 70,000 and 300,000 men, backed by over 1,200 warships. To cross from Asia into Europe, he built a bridge of ships across the Hellespont Strait. When a storm destroyed the first bridge, Xerxes ordered the sea itself whipped 300 times and had his engineers beheaded. That single act tells you everything about the man coming for Greece. As word spread, many Greek city-states simply surrendered. But a fragile alliance formed among those who refused, and command of their ground forces fell to the one state every Greek agreed was the finest military power in existence: Sparta. Sparta was not a city. It was a weapon shaped like a city. While Athens cultivated philosophy and democracy, Sparta was perfecting something far more brutal, the science of producing human beings who could not be broken. The system was called the agoge. At birth, infants were inspected by elders. The weak were left on hillsides to die. At age 7, boys were torn from their families and entered a decade-long crucible of pain, hunger, and discipline. They were taught to endure agony without flinching, to obey without questioning, and to place Sparta's survival so far above their own lives that self-preservation barely registered. Cowardice was a social death worse than any physical wound. A disgraced soldier was shunned by everyone, invisible to his own family, stripped of his identity. The fear of that shame was often more powerful than the fear of dying in battle. This was the world that forged King Leonidas and his 300 royal bodyguards, men who had been tested by fire, pain, and hunger their entire lives, men who did not fear death because they had been taught since childhood that some things are worth dying for. When the Greek alliance needed a strategy to stop Xerxes, Athenian general Themistocles proposed a brilliant solution: use geography as a weapon. Block the Persian army at the narrowest pass on land while simultaneously blocking the Persian fleet at sea. Strip away Persia's greatest advantage, numbers. The chosen choke point was Thermopylae, barely 100 meters wide, where an army of 10 could slow an army of 10,000. The assignment fell to Leonidas. But Spartan sacred law forbade military mobilization during their holy festival of Carnea. The compromise was grim. Leonidas could march immediately with only his 300-man royal bodyguard. Herodotus adds a chilling detail. Leonidas specifically chose men who already had sons, so their family lines wouldn't be wiped out when they died. He wasn't selecting soldiers for a difficult mission. He was choosing men for a funeral. Before marching, Leonidas consulted the oracle at Delphi. Her prophecy was terrifying in its clarity. Either Sparta falls or a Spartan king dies. For a man soaked in the Spartan code of duty and sacrifice, this was not a difficult choice. It wasn't really a choice at all. He marched north. By the time he reached the Hot Gates, his force had grown to roughly 7,000 allied Greeks, tiny against an empire. But at Thermopylae, tiny was exactly what the plan required. For 4 days after arriving, Xerxes simply waited, unable to believe this small force would actually stand and fight. He sent a messenger demanding surrender. Leonidas's reply has echoed through 2,500 years of history. Mollen Labe, come and get them. The battle opened with a storm of arrows so thick, Herodotus wrote, they blotted out the sun. A Spartan warrior named Dionysus replied, "Good, then we fight in the shade." The Greeks raised their shields, the arrows bounced off bronze, and then the Persian infantry crashed into the Spartan phalanx like a wave against a cliff face. It was not a battle, it was a lesson. Persian spears were too short, their shields shattered against the massive Greek hoplon. The narrow pass meant their crushing numerical advantage meant nothing. Only the front ranks could engage, and those ranks were being killed with cold, mechanical efficiency. Bodies piled. The pass became a slaughterhouse. On day 2, Xerxes unleashed his finest, the Immortals, 10,000 elite professional warriors who had never been defeated. The phalanx destroyed them too. Herodotus writes that Xerxes leapt from his throne multiple times in rage, watching his best men get cut to pieces. 2 days in, thousands of Persian casualties. The Greek line unbroken. Then a man named Ephialtes stepped out of the shadows and ended everything. He was a local Greek who knew these mountains like his own face. For a Persian reward, he led Xerxes' army along a hidden mountain path, the Anopeia, that wound around the pass and emerged directly behind the Greek position. The 1,000 Phocian soldiers Leonidas had stationed to guard the trail retreated when Persian arrows came. The Immortals walked right past them. By dawn, the Greeks would be surrounded. Leonidas gathered his commanders in darkness and made the hardest decision a leader ever makes. He sent the bulk of the army home to fight at Salamis, at Plataea, to keep the resistance alive. The delay had already worked. Greece had bought its time. But Leonidas was not leaving. Neither were his 300. And in a moment of heroism that history often forgets, all 700 soldiers from the city of Thespiae chose to stay and die alongside the Spartans. Not ordered, they chose it. Roughly 1,500 men against the full might of Persia. Leonidas told his men to eat well that night, because by morning they would dine in the underworld. When the final assault came, the Greeks didn't crouch behind their wall, waiting for death. They walked out to meet it, advancing into the wider pass to kill as many enemies as possible before the end. Herodotus writes that when their spears broke, they fought with their swords. When their swords shattered, they fought with their hands, their teeth. They killed until there was nothing left to fight with but rage and will. Leonidas fell in the heart of it. The survivors were driven to a small hill, surrounded on all sides. Xerxes ordered his archers forward. A storm of arrows fell. Silence. The Hot Gates fell. Xerxes marched south and burned Athens. In a final act of fury that even ancient observers found barbaric, he had Leonidas's body beheaded and crucified. because even in death, that Spartan king had made the most powerful man on earth feel small. But the sacrifice was not meaningless. The delay at Thermopylae bought the time Greece needed. Weeks later, at Salamis, the Greek fleet destroyed the Persian navy. The following year, at Plataea, a Greek army fired by the moral thunder of Thermopylae crushed the Persian land forces and ended the invasion forever. Greece survived, democracy survived, and with it, the ideas that would eventually become the foundation of Western civilization. On a stone monument at the Hot Gates, the poet Simonides carved words that have outlasted every empire that ever tried to silence them. Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie. Thermopylae is the ultimate proof that history is not only written by those who win, it is shaped permanently, undeniably, by those who refuse to surrender even when surrender is the only rational choice. Some defeats are so glorious, so human, so achingly brave that they become immortal. The Hot Gates fell, but what was born in their ashes never did. If this story moved you, drop a comment below and tell us which legendary battle you want us to cover next. And if you're new here, subscribe. There are 1,000 more stories like this one waiting to be told.